Hey everyone, Fox here from Fox and Kit WoodWorks, and we are live. It's been a minute. We've had a lot going on, and we just haven't had a chance to actually get in the shop live. I'm doing this old school style, no mic, no stand. We're just doing a quick live to see what we can jump on and what we're going through. Now, we are taking a little digression from our woodworking. We are going to hopefully get some woodworking maybe tomorrow night, and also the next day. I'll probably be doing a live with my father-in-law, Tim, over here. We're going to be looking at going on and doing some shoot, I can't even think what it's called, that we're going to be making. So what are we working on tonight? Let me show you. Can we engrave this photo on a piece of slate? That is what we are trying to do. Well, this one's actually going to take quite a long time. The last one I just did was 6 minutes, and this one's up to 10. I think it just has more it has to do on it. So we're going to be seeing how those settings work out, what is the best way of doing them. DPI, 80, 38, 100, one pass, 80, 38, 500, 80, 38, 500. All right, well, everything looks good on that. So we're going to see if we can actually engrave photos onto slate. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's possible. You've seen it done. But how do we do it? That's kind of the big key here. How do we actually engrave on slate? Well, there's a few things you have to do with photos before you can engrave on slate to actually get kind of that photo look. And it isn't exactly the most easy process. However, it is a process that you can do. Basically, you're going to take a photo, you're going to edit it so it has good contrasting, and then you're going to end up inverting the color. Why is that? Well, if you don't invert the color, it's going to come out backwards on your slate, because when you engrave on dark objects, you have to flip it. The way to look at it is this. To my knowledge, with all machines that I've ever seen used, if you engrave an image, anything black on your screen is going to engrave with the max power. Anything that is light or white on your screen is going to be reduced power, lightest power. It might even be zero power if it's true white. And then there's a gradient scale for colors there. They match all the colors up to different grayscale type images. Whether it's blue is this certain shade of gray or green is a different shade of gray. That is how it's able to determine it. Now, we do have ways of doing this. And I'll just show you, for example, one that I did quickly, probably about a month ago. This was just a simple image that I got off of the internet of a fox, go figure. And it actually turned out pretty good. But how do we get there? What's our process? First off, you gotta know what kind of laser you have. Now, to my knowledge, even a 10 watt will engrave slate, 5 watt will engrave slate. It's just gonna take a lot longer. It's not gonna be as fast. But speed always isn't the key here. It's about consistency. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do, and however you do it, is make yourself a test grid. Now, if you see here, we have a test grid, and on the lower right, all the way down there, you can see it's like white. It's almost overdone, right? And as you move to the left and up, it gets lighter and not as dark and as crisp. And what we're looking for is something like this guy. Let me find a better one that I used, because that was the IR laser. I want a non-IR laser. Here we go. Found it. What's up, Grayson? How you doing tonight? So here, this guy, for instance, here. You can see that at about the 700 level, right here, we're pretty white. It's a little not filled in fully. But when we move it over here, we're looking good. Hey, Georgia, how you doing? Georgia. That is what we're looking for, because anything less power than this, oh, not much, just trying to impart knowledge on laser engraving. We'll see how we'll do. Anything that's going to be less power than this is going to start going to this color. See how this is the speed, this is your power, this is your power. That is kind of your starting point. Now, when you get that power setting set up correctly, best area for slate, where it's just white and the box to the left of it for speed or below it for the power is not quite as white. It's a little darker. that is where you want to hit, because anything lesser than that is going to actually make it be tonal. Let me get this computer screen set up for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and go over to this image, and I am going to edit it, and I'm going to invert it back to its correct coloration. Now, most of the time when you get a color photo, it's going to be sent over to you, and it's going to be a photo, and you're going to be like, I can just throw that on there. You can't. You're working with a dark image. It doesn't work that way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the grayscale. Now, excuse me, because I did already make this grayscale, it's not going to change or adjust anything. Yeah, it's probably bouncing, I'm sorry, from one Wi-Fi router to another. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to fix the Wi-Fi system out here. That's why I haven't been doing as many lives. Xfinity's got to get their stuff figured out here. So let me get you set up. Look at my racks that are supposed to have tools on them because I haven't cleaned up. They're not there. Here we go. What's up, Tangier? How you doing? Okay, so here's the image. Now, this was a color photo. All I did is change to grayscale, and I cannot get it to go back to color. This is what most people would think that you would engrave on Slate to get it to look like that. But because, like I said earlier, lasers, machines, and programs look at black as full intensity and white as no intensity, you got to do something to fix that. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the jacket will be bright white, the face will be a light gray, all of her will be black in lighter grays, or excuse me, darker grays, and anything like the checkered dress is going to be white. So what do we do to fix that? Well, on Xtool Studio up over there, you have a thing called invert, and if you click it, boom, now you have a negative. And this is now going to transfer it over to any black item you're engraving on, whether it's acrylic, paint, slate. Let's see what other items you might have to work on this with. Can't really think of any other top. Those are the three big ones. That is how it's going to look. So now it has switched it to a polar, basically a negative, right? For you guys that are as old as me, which there's probably not many of you on, but maybe there are, you're looking at what we used to call our negatives from our 35 millimeter cameras. And if you're older than that, then it was your 60 mil and all those other ones. Basically, it is a negative. And that's why it's reversed like that. But now, when it comes to the engraving, everything that's black is going to turn out white, and everything that white is going to stay the slate color, and you're going to get your color scales from that. So let's just walk you over this way, and I'll show you the two images that we picked up. Now, hopefully it won't pick up on my car. I have a new Bluetooth adapter. I think I unplugged it this time. When I have it plugged in, it does not like that very much. It'll pick it up from like 80 feet away, which is kind of ridiculous. Okay, so here is that same image in two different forms. Now, one of the things that you got to do is also test your settings. Now, on this one, I messed with the contrast, and it's kind of hard to see in this light with this camera, but it is definitely over white, right? It got too much power, it got too much contrast on it. It just kind of washed it out. However, when you get the settings right, you get an image on Slate that looks pretty damn good. Now, this one got a little dirty because I stacked one on it, but you can see that's pretty much that picture. So that is how we do Slate engraving, to try to get a photo, a realistic photo on it. Now, I do have a prime example of how to turn one out even better. I did this one on my S1. These I'm getting done on the F2. I think it's going to be a little bit faster. The only frustrating part is I can't do them in bulk, which isn't really a big deal because this isn't really a bulk type thing to do. These are going to be ones and twosies. But nope, it's not there. Where did that Slate piece go? I have an image that I did of an uncle that turned out really good. And of course now I can't find it. And I'm sure this is just bouncing everywhere because I'm going from one Wi-Fi to the other. So if I drop you guys, I'm sorry. But I'm not going to be able to find it, so I'll have to look for it later. Anyways, that is how you engrave on Slate. Now, we have the one image going. It is almost done. I think it's got about 2 minutes left. So if anyone has any questions, please go ahead, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. If you guys have anything you want to talk about, that'd be great too. Like I said, we're doing this old school, so I'm sorry. It's not the best filming tonight. But I do appreciate you all joining in tonight. It's been a minute since I've been out here on the live stream. We have been very busy with things. I got some more information and news to drop out here in the next few weeks. But right now it's kind of more like the catch-up time, trying to get things done for a few customers so I can get to a bigger project and also start prepping for some crafts fairs and some booths that I have set up. Finally going mobile. Hopefully bringing that thing with us. So let's go ahead and take a look while this thing's going. You can see this one's a little whited out. That's awesome. You're a photographic printer for 32 years, so you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the negative. So yeah, this is the fun part. Anytime you do this, I always say have a couple pieces of scrap slate laying around, because though it may look correct on your computer and you think you have it all dialed in, those settings that you use may not always work for your next one. You're gonna have to probably adjust slightly. So what I typically do is, like, this order is for an order of 4 coasters, each one having a different image on it. I did a total of 9 extra coasters, one to kind of get my settings dialed in one area. Whether it's too high or too low, it's a pretty easy guess to change from there. But then I have a backup for each coaster. If I nail it the first time, then I have an extra one. And that's pretty good. I'm going to show you guys this. Let's look at a side by side. Here's the hard part. I'm old school right now. I'm not using all the fancy stuff that I have. There is the negative, and there is the actual image. And that's pretty darn good. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna try it one more time. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna adjust one setting on this. We're gonna drop the dot duration, which is basically how it is. And it's one of those things that it kind of takes a little bit of time to get used to. And also each photo, as you know, can be a little bit different with the lighting and the brightness and the contrast. Even though you're trying to get it all set to the same, it makes it very difficult. We're gonna change one setting on this, because I did try a setting on the one that I liked that came out a little bit light, but I do like the detail you get in it. This guy was set to a little bit lower dot duration, and I'll go over that in a second on the settings. But we're going to try it with the dot duration I did on that one and see how well it pops out, and see if we can get it just dialed in that much more. So let's just grab our piece of slate. Now, there are a few things you need to know on the slate. You just don't throw a piece of slate in there. Slate doesn't look like that. Slate looks lighter. There are some prep steps you need to do, and I'm going to go over those. And these are my, we'll call it trade secrets that I'm going to be releasing. So if you're listening and watching, here's your chance to jot down some notes. All right, we got this framing up. So I like to do it by hand. You can, the camera doesn't always do the best because it is a kind of a fisheye camera. So sometimes it is a little off. I just like to do it by hand and by eye, because let's just face it, most people are going to be looking at this with their eyes. They're not going to be taking out, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? A freaking tape measure or ruler and dialing it in on every little thing. As long as it's pretty close, it's good. Also, you can make slight adjustments, so that way you miss things like, you know, there's a little divot here, so I just want it barely touched on it. And then once you get it pretty much centered in, you can come over and hit the process button and make it work. Now we should shave a good amount of time off of this because we dropped it down. Well, not as much time as I thought it would do. Okay, so while this loads and goes, we're going to go over the settings and kind of talk about what each one means. Specific to the Xtool S1, I'm sure, or S1, Xtool F2 in Studio, but I'm sure a lot of this will also transpire over to other systems. So in Xtool Studio, when you click on an image to adjust it on a specific image, you have a couple different settings you got to look at. So first of all, we already talked about you got to set the picture up. And one of the things you want to do after you've reversed it, or I should say turn it into a negative, is you're going to want to go into the edit. And then over here on the side, you're going to have adjustments. And you're going to have things like grayscale, sharpness, saturation, brightness, all these different terms, right? Really what you're trying to do with this picture is adjust these ever so slightly or enough to make it so there is a nice contrast between the figure. You can see more details. If you look up here, you can see there's a gradient to the face. There's a gradient to the shirt. There's a gradient in the pants, the hands. There's all these different gradients. You don't want it to be all washed out one color. If you do that, it's not going to engrave correctly. Second, and this is the most important probably for you guys, and here are my actual settings I am using for this with the F2 and the blue laser. Dot duration. It is basically the dwell setting. They'll call it a dwell setting on other programs, and that's how long it sits in one spot before moving to the next dot. Now we'll get to the dots here in a second because it's a little lower down on the totem pole, but the dot duration is how long it's going to be sitting there, and it is measured in, I think it's microseconds. So a smaller number means less time, a bigger number means more time. Power, that's just how much power you're going to be running through your laser engraver. This is a 15-watt diode. We're running at about 40%. We'll call it half, 7.5%, somewhere in there. And that's where it's going. DPI, and that is your dots per inch. Anywhere from 300 to 500 is pretty good clarity. If you start having a lot of washout because of the picture, that means your DPI setting's too high and it's too close together. If you turn it down to like 400 or 300, you'll get basically less dots in the area, and that'll give you some more tones and coloration variation. And also that's how long each dot gets for it. And then there's a pass. That's how many passes you want to make. Typically you just do one, you don't do two unless you're trying to do depth engraving. And then bitmap. And this is basically the kind of the rastering of the image to make the details pop and have differences in it. It used to be really easy to see if you could preview it, but this doesn't allow a preview. When you do preview, you hit Atkinson, you'll see that it's kind of a pixelated kind of picture. And if you click through the different settings, those pixels kind of change around. So those are the things that all boil down. For me personally, Atkinson typically 90% of the time is the one that I end up going with. It works the best, it has the best clarity, and it really does a good job on things. I also will typically use, for glass, Atkinson or Stucky. In fact, here you can kind of see how the raster it shows here. I wonder if it's the same image. There you go. Okay. So let me show you that. Grayscale. It literally, let me zoom in on this for you guys. This is the important part. Grayscale just makes it grayscale. Jarvis, you can see how it makes it more dots. Simulates shades using black and white dots of varying density. Bayer, halftone dot mode. So you can see it's kind of like overly pixelated. Floyd, most classic dithering algorithm. Each dot references immediately adjacent pixels. Stucky, an improved version of Jarvis. Atkinson, only transfers 3/4 of the information, resulting in a sparser dot matrix, more white space. Sierra, simplified version of Jarvis. Depending on what you're using, each one of those can come up in its own form as working the best. I have typically found out that Atkinson works the best on most. I have used Stucky. I have used Jarvis, Floyd, and Bayer on certain glass pictures works better. It just depends on what you're using. The biggest thing you can do, and help yourself out with is doing something like this. If I can find it, I might have thrown that one away. Nope, it's buried under there. We'll use this as an example. So here's what I have. I have a whole bunch of test images, right? These were actually for a client. I was testing them out, seeing which one was going to be the best, running through it. Now, what you would do is use the same image, the same settings, the same power, the same everything, but you would do this one, excuse me, this one in Stuckey, and then this one in Atkinson, and this one in Floyd, and this one in Jarvis, and this one in Bayer, and this one in this. So you catch my drift? You try each one at the same image, same size, same power settings on different ones, and you get an idea of what it's going to change on the image. Now, if you really want to get detailed into this, and I have done that in the past, pick different images. Do one with SVGs. SVGs don't have all these settings like dwell times and stuff. It is literally an SVG is a vector file. It's going to say go to these spots and run the laser this entire time during it. A JPEG, a PNG, that's going to have the dwell settings on most of these machines because it's a picture. Run one with one, run one with the other. It's a lot of time, but what it does is allows you to get everything adjusted. So, anyways, that is my live for tonight. Wanted to go ahead and say thank you all again. I'm glad to be back on a live. You all stay safe and have a great night.